bring Geoff Mosher into the conversation. You hear him Thursday nights as part of Mosher, McMullen, and Krause. This Thursday, that will kind of be the countdown to kickoff show, leading you into Eagles and Giants. And Moshe, we've got a lot of stuff to dive into here. He joins us on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And there's so many places we can start. I guess let's go with Jay Ajayi out for the year. So now what? I mean, you're hearing all sorts of names, and we're not just talking about mid-level names. We're talking about the highest of high-level running backs in this league, and everybody just says, all right, Fletcher Cox, rework deal. We haven't even brought that up. Howie Roseman, there's got to be something there. Is there some dots to connect here?
Well, I certainly think there are dots to connect. You obviously guys know that Howie Roseman is not a sit-still or a stand-pat type of general manager. He's always checking around the league, always trying to see how he can upgrade the roster. Now, I think this is some pretty interesting. We need to kind of incorporate some recent history. And by the way, all the questions that you're asking me about this, I addressed today with Adam Kaplan and Billy Osborne on our Inside the Birds podcast, so everybody should check that out.
Nice plug.
But here's the big thing. Last year, yes, thank you for the shameless plug allowance there. But last year, if you remember, the Eagles make a trade to bring in Jay Ajayi at a time where if you thought they were going to make a deal, you would have thought it was going to be to get a linebacker in with Jordan Hicks out, or even a tackle. A lot of people thought they were going to trade for the guy from Cleveland or San Francisco to fill that left tackle role. And what do? They bring in a running back, an area that was not perceived to be as weak as some of the other areas on the team last year. So fast forward to this year. Will the Eagles be looking at a running back? No doubt about it. Will it be Le'Veon Bell? I don't think so. So far, I've not gotten any indication. As I said on the Inside the Birds podcast last 2 weeks, I do have an organizational source in Pittsburgh, and I've asked him if he knows of the Eagles reaching out to them about Le'Veon Bell, and he said he hasn't heard a thing. So I do think the Eagles will explore some running backs, and we can talk about some guys that are out there. But don't be surprised if they're looking and the market they feel is better for them to upgrade at A, wide receiver, or B, even cornerback. You got to remember, wide receiver right now is just as problematic. The Eagles could easily look at their running backs and say, yes, we lost Ajayi, but we still have Corey Clement about to come back, should be healthy soon. Darren Sproles should be coming back, and we've got Josh Adams. That is 3 guys, and Wendell Smallwood. So that is 4 guys, and Smallwood is playing well. You look at wide receiver, and with Nelson in the slot and with Alshon on one side, there is literally nobody they have that is scaring them on the opposite side at the Z. It's not Shelton Gibson. He can't stop committing bad penalties or making errors. It's not Kamar Aiken. He's too slow. It's not Jordan Matthews. He barely played, and 2 weeks ago his touchdown was a gift anyway. They need some vertical threat ability, and Adam Kaplan mentioned this name just as a don't be surprised if, because he's a guy that is probably expendable, but Tyrell Williams from the Chargers, right?
Yeah.
They have Mike Williams now. They have Keenan Allen. So that might be a guy who's on the market and expendable and possibly someone that the Eagles could be looking at.
All right, let's unpack a couple of things here, Geoff. And I want to start with the other running backs because I'm with you, which is Le'Veon Bell just seems out of reach, but you know how the public is, and they want the biggest, flashiest name on the market, and that's Le'Veon Bell. Enter Lesean McCoy. And to me, and this is just me, it looks like from the outside, this is something that could be driven by Jeffrey Lurie because it's a familiar name. It's somebody in here that can ease the blow of not getting Le'Veon Bell because it's somebody that people will celebrate. Now, what's happening off the field pending that? But there is this relationship that's now mended because of his exit. And yes, he's better than nobody, but it seems to be a quick fix more from a PR standpoint than it's a long-term play of the back that you bring in is really going to fix the issues that they have.
Well, he's someone that knows the offense, obviously, someone who knows the city. He's got the history. I didn't check his contract status, so I'm not quite sure
Who's that?
how expensive
McCoy.
he is right now.
McCoy has 2 years left on his deal.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's pretty good. And I'm looking at it right now, $6 million. It's really cost prohibitive. I mean, not cost prohibitive for the Eagles to do it. The question is, why do the Bills, who are trying to build up around Josh Allen and need as much, complementary weaponry as they can while this kid tries to figure it out, are they just going to give up Lesean McCoy for anything? Probably not, I would think. I mean, I would think that they would want at least a second-round pick, or I think there's a report out there looking for 2 picks. If you're going to give up a high pick for a running back, then I would say just go get Le'Veon Bell, because my philosophy on Le'Veon Bell is you bring him in, you have him play however many games in the playoffs if you make it. You may give up a second-round pick for him, but if you let him walk in the offseason, then you're going to get at least a third-round compensatory pick in return. So if you're asking me, would I give up a second-round pick to get Bell and a third-round pick the next year just to have him for the last 10 or 11 games in playoffs? Yeah, I would do that. So I don't know. I mean, you'd have to weigh Bell then versus McCoy, and you would have McCoy for an extra year. Again, I think that the Eagles are going to make a move at running back, but I don't think it's going to be a big name. I don't think it's going to be Le'Veon. I don't think it's going to be Shady. And the one name that I'm really confused about that I keep hearing is David Johnson, only because he just signed a pretty rich contract extension, I think 3 or 4 years, $49 million. All I know is that if the Arizona Cardinals cut or trade him, then they have to absorb a $20 million cap hit next year, no matter what. So I don't know why the Cardinals would want to take on, have $20 million of dead cap next year by getting rid of David Johnson when they're trying to build up around Josh Rosen and their offense.
All three guys seem ridiculous.
No sense at all.
Yeah, a lot, and we talked about this earlier about is running back necessarily the most pressing issue for this team?
No, I think their issue. Well, health, yes. I mean, obviously, when you're down to, now with Noah Ajayi and with Clement and Sproles, we still don't know if they're going to be 100%. That's an issue. But I think the running game is more of an issue, not because of the personnel at running back, but because of the offense's struggles right now and the lack of identity that they really have. But if you've got a healthy Smallwood, a healthy Sproles, and a healthy Clement, I think you can do it. I think you've got. I really do think highly of Corey Clement. Now maybe he's not a lead back like a Brian Westbrook or a Shady McCoy, but they're deep there again if those guys are healthy. That, to me, their lack of a receiver opposite of Alshon Jeffrey on the outside that can make a safety play deep or make a defensive coordinator scheme more conservatively is hurting them as much as anything going on with the running back.
And that was supposed to be Mike Wallace. I mean, we talked about it earlier. They lost Torrey Smith. They replaced him with Wallace. Universally, guys, right? That was an upgrade. Oh, they got rid of Smith. They brought in Wallace. That was supposed to be an upgrade. And Wallace and Wentz never got a chance to play a snap together.
Yeah, and think about it, because it's hard to kill Howie, right? Because it's not like they put all their eggs in the Mike Wallace basket either. They had Mac Hollins coming back for year 2, and that was supposed a guy who at North Carolina was a field stretcher. He averaged like 20 yards a catch. Shelton Gibson was, they kept him and they tried to groom him, and he had a nice camp. He just hasn't really, he made a really nice catch the other night, but he also twice lined up in an illegal formation and killed them with that. And then obviously Kamar Aiken has no speed. So they have guys, they just all 4 of them. It hasn't worked out right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's hard for me to think that there isn't anybody on the team right now. And this goes to my bigger frustration with the coaches on both sides of the football. It seems like we're having this conversation multiple times over, which is there seems to be a body on the field that you can point to that should be able to do a job, but for some reason isn't. And it's hard for me to think specifically that there isn't anybody on this team right now that isn't at least as fast as Torrey Smith was last year.
Well, and this was the conversation you and I were having, Eitan, is the 53 guys they have right now, Jeff, there's not too many guys you point at and say, with what the current roster looks like, this guy is a better option than that guy, which makes you wonder, is this the best offense of personnel that they're going to have? And in other words, can their offense get better as is? Because there doesn't seem to be a lot of places to upgrade on this roster unless you go outside the organization.
Well, the big question to me, guys, is can the offensive line play better? Because I really do believe that of all the things that are going wrong right now for the Eagles, even including the secondary, I think the offensive line's inability to be as good as it was last year is probably the most damaging thing right now to the team, and probably why they're 2-3.
Yeah, but Jeff, let me jump in.
4-1.
Look at what you're saying. I agree with you. Mike agrees with you. Everybody listening agrees with you. But look at what you're saying. The same unit with all pros on it last year that was one of the best, if not the best unit, just forgot how to block because everybody's there. Everybody's healthy. What else is – you've seen it. And it's not just up close and personal. The All-22, the film shows that these guys look like they're the first time they're playing next to each other. Brooks and Johnson, the lack of communication looks like it's the first time out there. What you're saying is true, but think about how damning of a statement that is.
I know, and it's probably inexplicable as much to, Jeff Stoutland and Doug Peterson as it is to us. Look, I mean, Lane Johnson, it's weird because last year I'm sure there were times where Lane or Jason Peters got beat and gave up a sack or did something, and the Eagles won the game by 20 or 30 points, so it didn't matter. But this year the games are closer, so every mistake becomes magnified. Lane Johnson cannot let a guy like Stephen Weatherly beat him that easily to the inside and hit Carson Wentz. That's the hit that caused the fumble that Joseph recovered. He just can't. I mean, he's battled guys like DeMarcus Lawrence and Von Miller and all the great pass rushers that they went up against last year, Khalil Mack. You can't let Stephen Weatherly do that. And I credit Lane. At least he stood up and said it. But on the other side, Jason Peters, he's clearly playing hurt. He's not playing like the Jason Peters that we all know. Now, maybe some of that is father time. I think we're about to find that out over the next 10 or 11 games. I'll tell you this. Isaac Seumalo is taking some blame for that first sack. That's on Jason Peters because that's a TE stunt. The tackle is stumping inside the end. Jason Peters just basically lets this stunt happen by not dropping back vertically. And poor Isaac Seumalo has to block two guys at one time while Jason watches. And that's the same exact stunt that the Titans used to beat Wisniewski and Jason Peters the week before. So I kind of agree with Wisniewski. I didn't think he was playing poorly. I think he got benched because they needed to make a change, and Jeff Stoutland wants to get Jeff Stoutland guys in there. They drafted him in the third round, so put him in there. But it certainly didn't solve the problems that they've been having on that line.
What do you make of, obviously the running game, we're talking about adding a running back, but they don't seem to be running the ball all that much. So bringing in a running back, that the biggest issue potentially is the running back's inability to pass protect. Is that something that's being overlooked?
Yeah, I think that you've seen the miscommunication. Small, obviously it's not his thing, and this is where they've missed Corey Clement and Darren Sproles. Those are their two better running backs at pass protection, and them being out has hurt them. And I do think that, I put this, just like everything going on, guys, it's not one person, one thing, one scheme, but I put a little bit of it on Doug because I think Doug abandoned the run when he shouldn't have against the Titans. And then, in this game here against the Vikings, they fell behind early, so obviously you're trying to pass your way back in a little bit. But, look at Carson. First play of the game is an RPO. And if you go watch it over and over and over, and the All-22 ain't working right now, but even if you watch it on broadcast version, he tries to force a pass to Alshon Jeffrey when Alshon is completely covered by Xavier Rhodes. If he just hands the ball off to Ajayi there, they've got 5-on-4 blocking on the right side. And, with Jay Ajayi, your best running back, you've got good lanes. So if the RPO was about favorable numbers, why aren't you handing off the ball there when you've got more blockers and they've got defenders? So you even put a little bit of that on Carson. I thought Carson made some questionable decisions throughout the course of the game. I think it's okay. We're allowed to criticize Carson Wentz a little while around here, right? That's okay, right?
No question.
Yeah,
I mean,
it should be.
And I think it's warranted. Like Doug said, by the way, real quick, Doug said the other day that the first three plays they ran the ball, and he said, well, it was an RPO. He said there was an option to run. They just chose not to run it, right? Are you buying that as, okay, that's acceptable?
No, that is a way of saying for Doug that, there is the ability that play starts off as a run. It is the quarterback's decision to make that. And it's fair. Like we praise Carson Wentz when he sees the defense and decides to pull the ball out and make a great throw. And we say, hey, that's a great decision. So we should criticize Carson Wentz a little bit when he decides to try to throw to a receiver who's not open and really covered well. But to your point, Mike, there's a difference between an RPO, which at least gives the quarterback the opportunity to pass, or just a run. And if Doug wants to get his run game going, Doug can just put out a formation there that's not an RPO. It's just a run, and there's no way to audible out of it unless Carson sees something and he wants to completely change up the call, and that's okay with Doug. But if he wants to run the ball, then put out a run formation, two tight ends, give the ball to your big running back and run the ball. Don't give it the whole run pass option.
Yeah, I look at the run game itself, and my concern has never been can they run the football? It's why aren't they running it more? So if you want to add a running back, great, but it doesn't mean that all of a sudden the running game is going to go from 0 to 60. It's already at 60. It's just how much has Doug Peterson used it. So with that said, let me give you another name specifically. You tell me what you've heard about the possibility of the Eagles landing Jordan Howard.
You know, it makes a lot of sense, obviously, because of the connection there that Joe Douglas has with the Bears, who is their scouting director. Again, that's another team where I'm thinking, why do they want to trade Jordan Howard? They obviously are, you know, they're grooming Mitch Trubisky along. They have a nice 1-2 punch with Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen. Tariq Cohen is like a 5'8", 180-pound back. I don't think he's built to carry or touch the ball 20 to 25 times a game. So, yeah, he's in third year, and I could see the Bears maybe wanting to get rid of him, but they're playing fairly well and they're competing. So, again, their asking price is going to be pretty good for a guy who I think is a good running back, not a great one. The name I would look at, to be honest with you, is Duke Johnson. I mentioned this in the Inside the Bears podcast this morning. No reporting on it, just me speculating that here's a guy who's a pretty good running back. He catches the ball well. He's big, but he's kind of losing snaps to Carlos Hyde and Nick Chubb in Cleveland and could serve a really nice, purpose here in Philadelphia. He also signed an extension this offseason, but it was a very, very, a small one compared to like David Johnson's. It's only like $5 million of a signing bonus. So I don't think the Browns would take some huge hit by moving him. So that's a name that I thought would work well here.
There's another name mentioned that somebody texted in, and that's because Devonta Freeman's coming back. Ito Smith got some carries with him out. You got Tevin Coleman. So they really got three guys down there that they're trying to figure out what to do with. So there is creative ways, and there are names out there that if the Eagles want to, it's just how much do they want to give up? Do they want to pull the trigger? What are they willing to pay? It's not like the safety position, Jeff, where when McLeod went out, there wasn't a lot of options around the league. There are options here.
Yeah, no, there are plenty of options. And that helps, too, because then you don't feel like you need to give up, the whole world to get a guy like Le'Veon Bell when you think you might have good guys like Tevin Coleman out there. And Coleman's a good name because the Falcons are losing by the week, and, they could be out of it pretty soon. And that's a kid that I think he's up on the walk year of his contract, and they may not bring him back, or he may not want to be back and play second fiddle to Devonta Freeman. So you might be able to work something out there. But again, I would stress this. Just think more about wide receiver and maybe even defensive back than you would at running back right now. Not that I don't think they're going to make a move at running back. I just think that there might be a bigger one at one of those two spots.
Yeah, I'm trying to think right now, moving forward, let's assume that they don't add a running back. Maybe they add a wide receiver. I don't know if it would be a big enough name to move the needle to my question, but you've got Alshon, Nelson Aguilar. You've got Jordan Matthews, at least an addition there. Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. Skill set guys, even Corey Clement when he's healthy. You've got guys who can throw the football to already. And they've struggled. And I know that Carson hasn't started the season, but can you envision 6-7 weeks from now, this offense, as much as it's struggled with the skill guys that they've had healthy, all of a sudden looking night and day different? Now, they can look better, but it's hard for me to think that 6-7 weeks down the line we'll be watching a different football team.
You're saying if they do or don't add
I'm saying
an offense?
Put that aside. Like, maybe they add a guy as a wide receiver or running back, but it won't be Le'Veon Bell. It won't be somebody to move the needle like that. I'm just saying they've already got guys that are talented around Carson Wentz in skill set positions, and they still look like slop.
So it's hard for me to answer unless I kind of know down the line how well Lane Johnson and Jason Peters are starting to play, and even Jason Kelsey, by the way. I think that a lot of their run schemes look different this year because either Kelsey's got something going on with the lower leg or foot or knee. But if the offensive line plays better, I do think this offense could look drastically different because I don't think Carson needs that much more time to throw some of these guys open. He just can't have situations where as soon as he drops back, these two linemen are right on his back, like in that first sack. He just needs a little more time. Not a lot, just a little. And then he can make some plays by himself as he kind of finds his way back from this knee injury. So, yeah, I don't think they need like an all-pro receiver. I don't think they need an all-pro running back. I think they could use a little bit of an upgrade in playmaking ability at running back or wide receiver for this offense to look a lot different. But again, it would have to be if the offensive line played like it did last year.
Geoff Mosher is with us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline as we look at some of the problems that are going on with this team. And it seems like, we've been focusing a lot on running back, wide receiver, offense. Is that to suggest then that the defense, because we talked a lot about defense last week, they struggled in Tennessee. And basically, we had a conversation here last week and we had some disagreements about, I said, look, it seems it's as simple as the splits. They're a good defense at home, not so good on the road. Did we answer that question Sunday?
Yeah, I still don't think the defense is as bad as some people are making it out to be. On the road against the Titans in 4 quarters, they give up 20 points, right? So yesterday they come home, Sunday they come home against the Vikings and they gave up 23 points. Now maybe Bailey should have made a 29-yarder and it's a little more than that, but in general, I feel like they're struggling because they're on the field a lot because of the offense. I do think they didn't do a great job of tackling against the Vikings. There were a couple of plays by Sidney Jones and Darby that were not, overly physical. And even Jordan Hicks, I thought, had not his best game against the Vikings. But people are killing the pass rush. They're saying it's not hitting home. I disagree. I know it's not hitting home, but I just picked out 4 or 5 GIFs that I made, or GIFs from the game, where the pass rush is there and Kirk Cousins just made a play. You got to give Kirk Cousins some credit. There were times where he took a beating and he just made a play. He's good like that.
According to your partner on Thursday nights, John McMullen, well, not according to him, but Pro Football Focus, he tweeted this out a little while ago. The Eagles have the second most pressures in the NFL with 133 and the highest percentage of plays where the opposing quarterback has been under pressure, 57%. So it appears that they are getting a pass rush. They're just not getting a sack.
Yeah, I feel like it's the low-hanging fruit to just blame the D-line because it's last year it was, oh, my God, suffocating and sacks and pressures. The pressures are there. The problem is that the quarterbacks are making plays or the defensive backs are not making plays, and that's something that we've talked about a lot. If I were to rank in order the main warts that are, causing the Eagles to be 2 and 3 right now, number 1 would be offensive line, and number 2 would be the secondary.
Yeah, but
the corners.
Real quick, could that not be the split second of a hurry versus a sack could be the difference between Jalen Mills making a play on a ball and getting burnt, which is what we saw last year?
Yeah. All right. Do you remember the play Adam Thielen? It was on their first drive. He makes this sprawling catch along the right sideline. Kirk Cousins got drilled on that play. He got completely, and also the one where
he hit Thielen on the 68-yarder
by Thielen on a double move. He got drilled on that. So if you get there a split second earlier, of course it's a sack, it's a turnover, and those guys don't have to worry.
How about this, guys?
Now you're asking the pass rush, which has been really good statistically, to get there even faster.
Welcome to life with Jalen Mills.
Yeah.